How's it going? Welcome back to another great video with your host, The Savior today. And this is gonna be an interesting video because it's something very personal to me right now in this specific point in time. And I know not everyone is going to agree. There's so many games that I want to talk about in my yearly review series that I've, 100%ed, that I feel very passionate about, or they have some deep, storytelling going on or some philosophical themes that I want to draw parallel to. But this is just something that has made me happy in the last couple of weeks. So today I'm going to be talking about Star Wars Outlaws, and I want to give you a Star Wars Outlaws 2025 review because I believe that this game was done dirty, okay? This game was brutalized on release. Now, there was so much negativity on Star Wars Outlaws on release. I myself was skeptical and, I played it originally on console and I put it down quite quickly because it just didn't really hook me. And I've got to say, I'm enjoying the hell out of it recently. And that's because of three reasons that I want to get into. Because I think context is important when we talk about a game like this.
That's good.
Star Wars Outlaws truly blew my mind, and basically it's the experience I wanted from Starfield that I never got, and I finally found it, surprisingly, within Star Wars Outlaws. So, first of all, I need to get this out of the way because I believe context does matter. There's three reasons as to why I'm enjoying Star Wars Outlaws a hell of a lot now compared to when I played it briefly on release and I never really gave it a full chance, okay? So number one is the fact that I'm playing this on PC. And it doesn't mean you can't enjoy it on console. Of course, there are plenty of people who enjoy this game on console, but surprisingly enough, this is actually a PC game, and it's pretty rare for AAA developers, especially Ubisoft, to cater their game towards the PC market, not so much the console market. And I didn't understand that on release, but over time, this has got so many options. It's got full ray tracing abilities. It's got third-party features from NVIDIA with special lighting, ray tracing, and all of this crazy stuff. Some of it I can't actually use because my hardware just can't support it, but utilizing it on high to ultra graphics, even with not everything maxed out but close to maxed out, this game is absolutely breathtaking.
I want more. And I know I shouldn't.
So that is a huge reason to me because it's so rare to see a game utilize the potential of PC hardware in modern day AAA games. There's only a few of them out there, like Cyberpunk, for example, that really push the limits, and this is one of those games, and that was very surprising to me. And the amount of detail in the world and the level design, which I'll talk about later in the video, is crazy to me. And then pushing that with the highest graphics that your system can offer, it's just something truly amazing. And I think it looks pretty good on console as well for what it's worth. So it doesn't matter what you're playing it on.
That's good.
The second reason why I'm enjoying Star Wars Outlaws in 2025 much more is simply because I am now actually playing this game properly, not just dipping my toes into it, with all of the updates, already released. And before, I played it on release and it was very much a stealth-focused game, and I don't really care for that type of experience, and it never really grabbed my attention. Now, this time around, my wise ones, it's absolutely crazy because I'm coming in fresh, as it were, and to have all of these updates, DLCs now in the game, it's completely changed the formula. Ubisoft especially don't usually go back and add updates to their single player games, but they did with this game because this isn't a typical Ubisoft game. This reminds me of why I used to like Ubisoft, with games like Beyond Good and Evil, Prince of Persia. This is a callback to that period of gaming, if you ask me, and especially as it's, co-developed, it's not just Ubisoft. That's why I think this game is special, but people shat all over this game on release simply because it was Ubisoft. I myself was skeptical, and I kind of regret, making a few videos that I did now, but some of the reviews were just completely brutal.
اورتينايدي لبابا جي بابا جي لاكس بوكس سيريس اكس.
Some of the videos that came out when this game released were just completely untrue and biased, and that just shows you, how toxic the gaming community can be at times, just because, something is Star Wars, which I understand. A lot of people don't like Star Wars at the moment, and I'm one of them, and they don't like the greed from Ubisoft. Again, I'm one of them, but it's so easy to get caught up in that tribal mentality of that group thinking, them versus us mentality, and write off anything new from, these, kind of already established companies like Ubisoft and, IP that has fallen like Star Wars, and just say it's a bad game. And so many, out of context videos were basically shared around on YouTube and the internet at the time, and it gave Star Wars Outlaws such a bad reputation that many people just said this game was medium, many people said that this game was mid and this game was bad and you should avoid it and it's the worst thing ever, when I'm feeling like I'm living in a mad world, because I feel completely the opposite, because I think this game is great. So that is the second reason why I think I'm coming in with this perspective, because they've added so much to this game that they didn't have on release. They actually changed the core fundamental gameplay loop, so now you can carry weapons with you. You can put it on your speeder bike. Before, you would just drop them as soon as you try to climb a ladder or something, which was pretty stupid. The AI is just so much better this time around. Optimization, like I said, is higher, and before it was quite buggy. Now it runs pretty well for the most part. It's not stable 60 FPS all the time, but it depends on your system, but it is definitely much more playable, and it depends how much you want to max out the graphics and all that kind of stuff. But it's so much better compared to what it was on release. Now, the biggest thing why many people didn't like the core gameplay loop, because it was trying to be a stealth game, but it didn't have good enough stealth mechanics. But now it's, a proper open world kind of semi-light RPG set in the Star Wars universe.
That's good.
And I do believe their statement, which sounded ridiculous on paper, saying they've never had a proper open world Star Wars game, but actually now, playing this game, I believe they were right, because this truly is an open world Star Wars game. Not just open world, open worlds. Not like, like hub zones like you would get in the Jedi Survivor games, which I enjoy, but this is truly a living, breathing Star Wars galaxy, and it's so amazing what they've done with it over all of these updates. So like I said, now with stealth, that isn't the only option. You can go in guns blazing if you want, and they've added so much, like customization tweaks, just like they did with Starfield, where you can fine-tune the experience. So now, if you want to one-shot enemies, you can. If you want them to one-shot you, you can do that. You can tweak all the difficulty options, and there's just a lot of customization, which is very rare, especially for a Ubisoft game. No hand-holding if you don't want it, no HUD, no map markers, no yellow paint smeared all on the wall, where you have to climb because, modern day gamers are baby brains. You can actually turn that off, and that's pretty rare to see in a AAA game like this, and I just think with all the updates, they've done a fantastic job. So that's the second reason. And the third reason why I'm enjoying Star Wars Outlaws so much right now, simply because I'm in the right headspace for that, okay? I'm in a mood for a big open galaxy, open world adventure where you can go and do whatever you want, and it's literally giant. And also, I'm coming from the perspective of watching Andor Season 2, which I believe to be one of the best pieces of media that Star Wars has ever created. So it's definitely got me in that mood. And Star Wars Outlaws is such a unique setting, because you're not a Jedi, you're not a Sith, you're not someone with massive, powers. You're not someone who is super overpowered, and especially now with the customization, with the difficulty options. This is basically Han Solo, the simulation, okay? And for many of us, we've wanted that experience set in proper Star Wars, not this bullshit New Order, whatever the hell they're called. I don't even know.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
And just so you know where I'm coming from, I don't count anything past 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6, the Han Solo movie, and Andor, Rogue One. Anything else I don't consider Star Wars. You know, Disney really fucked up Star Wars, okay? I don't consider the Obi-Wan to be canon. I don't consider any of that Mandalorian or Boba Fett stuff canon. Obviously it is, but I don't care. It's not my Star Wars, okay? And the same thing for the other movies with Rey and all that kind of garbage. But the good thing about this is you can tell the people behind this loved and cared for the original source material that George Lucas, you know, founded and created. This is, you know, that perfect peak era of Star Wars, and they've captured that essence and that vibe so well. And I'm not even a huge Star Wars fan. Of course, I love the universe as a, you know, a nerd in general. Of course, my favorite things being Fallout, number 1, Lord of the Rings, you know, sci-fi and fantasy. Those are my top 2 that I go towards. But I'm not a huge die-hard Star Wars fan. I don't read the comics. I don't care about all the lore and all that kind of stuff. But I do goddamn love the universe. You can bet your ass that Disney and George Lucas, they have hooked me from a young boy with that lovely Star Wars crack. You know, that lovely... You want to buy some death sticks? Because they've got me hooked on death sticks. I do hope you enjoy this Star Wars Outlaws 2025 review. It's one of those games that I think deserves to be looked back on and remembered. And a lot of people aren't talking about it anymore, especially with all the DLCs being done at this point and all the updates. So I think it's the perfect time to talk about this. Even though many people might not care about this game, I think it will be remembered as one of the best Star Wars games in retrospect. Not maybe the best open world game, but certainly one of the best Star Wars games. I would say it's my number 1, and I love some, you know, Star Wars games like Star Wars Battlefront 2, you know, the Jedi series, and there's many of them, but I think this is now definitely top place for me, or at least the second place, because I have so many fond memories of Battlefront. But anyway, let's get into the Star Wars Outlaws 2025 review. I do hope you enjoy it and you subscribe to the channel if you're new. Become a wise one today. Think for yourself. Don't fall into the tribal mentality that the internet always, you know, guides us down, these little echo chambers of, you know, only having one opinion. Let's have a nuanced discussion, understand we all have different perspectives. That is what this channel is all about, destroying tribalism, looking at games and analyzing media fairly with, you know, objective takes as much as possible. Obviously, I'll tell you if I have a bias, and I do have a bias towards this, I'm not gonna lie. And if you enjoy gaming analysis, game reviews, and philosophical content, you're in the right place. Subscribe to the channel and become a wise one today. So now I'm going to discuss the 3 reasons as to why Star Wars Outlaws is much better than you think, and why I personally think Star Wars Outlaws in 2025 is truly something special. Okay, so I've already now touched on what has changed about the game. Like I said, combat is so much better now. You can make it as difficult as you want. You can make it feel very, very realistic, like one shot to the head with a blaster, that's it for anything. Depending on the difficulty slider that you choose, you can have the same thing for you. You know, enemies dealing, you know, like just 1 or 2 blasters to you and you'll be dead. You can make it very difficult. Like I said, the AI is better, stealth is so much better now, and you can basically go about this any way that you want. It doesn't have to be stealth focused. You can go in completely, you know, guns blazing if you want, or you can have a mixture of the 2. And there's just a lot of quality of life updates and optimization into this game now that is just so much better, especially with the spaceship and all that kind of stuff. And the DLC is just add, you know, to a complete package, and they did some crazy stuff with that. So now I'm going to get into the reasons I love this game, the main points as why I think Star Wars Outlaws is a good game. Maybe not a masterpiece, but close, very close to a masterpiece in my opinion. And I think it deserves, as crazy as it sounds, you know, to be up there with some of the best open world games like The Witcher 3.
That's good.
Maybe I'm insane, but I actually enjoy this a hell of a lot more than Red Dead Redemption 2. That is probably the biggest hot take in this video, but you know, that's just my own personal preference. But yeah, this hits so many of those things that I've always wanted in a Star Wars game, and especially in an open world Star Wars game. And basically I'm going to discuss what no one else is talking about, because like I said, on release this got so much backlash, and I understand. I always criticize Ubisoft. I think most of their games are dog crap. I personally don't enjoy Assassin's Creed, which might be surprising to you because I like this. But it doesn't mean that all of their games are bad, and you can enjoy them if you want. If you're a fan of Assassin's Creed, that's good for you. I enjoyed the, original ones. I'm just not a big fan of what happened after the Ezio saga, okay? But anyway, I think Star Wars Outlaws is incredible. Yes, Ubisoft are a bad company and they're going downhill, and it's justice. It's rightly deserved, I believe, because they just haven't been keeping up with the rest of the industry. But recently I've had such a fun time going back into that universe and actually enjoying Star Wars again, thanks to media like Andor. So there is still good Star Wars, and of course the originals are always going to be a classic. So you just have to take the good with the bad. And so many people just couldn't talk about this with a nuanced perspective. They just said that this game was bad, and they never talked about all of the crazy things that this game does so well. So that's what I want to highlight today, to try and convince you to give it another chance if you completely, disregarded it at release. So you have to understand that Star Wars Outlaws now feels completely different compared to when it came out at the beginning. The first level, for example, feels completely different, and I didn't even realize, what I was missing, to be honest, because like I said, I came in fresh and I only played a little bit of it at the beginning, when it was unpatched and with all of these updates. But now it's such a different experience. I understand why people hated it, to be honest, at release. Like, if you get spotted in a mission, it fails and you have to restart because it's basically a bad stealth game. And that is not what this game should have been. There were combat elements in this, of course, but now it's so much better because you can go in guns blazing. It doesn't matter if you get caught, there's actual consequences to that happening. They will send in reinforcements, there will be more, enemies, and when the difficulty is high, it makes a big difference because this isn't a typical third-person shooter. You aren't overpowered. You are this Han Solo type smuggler slash kind of, sci-fi cowboy where it's all about your quick reactions with a blaster, and you're not mowing down people with a machine gun most of the time. So it really does capture that kind of scrappy combat feel, and it does it so well, and I can't believe that that wasn't in the base game to begin with, because it makes it completely different now entering any situation, and you can either take them down stealthily or go in guns blazing, have a bit of both. Also, you can always give yourselves little challenges in game. For example, to try and play as immersive as possible, I can't do stealth takedowns on enemies with helmets because I think it's pretty ridiculous. So it gives me flexibility. You have a stun option on your blaster as well, so you can zap them to sleep, which is very satisfying. And now, like I said, you've got that whole combat sandbox to play with. So it's completely different compared to on launch. But the things this game does so well, let's get into it right now, okay? First of all, it's the atmosphere, it's the world building. All of these worlds that you land on, I've never seen worlds this detailed, this rich in an open world setting. I think it does it better than The Witcher 3 in many ways. Maybe not as good as Red Dead Redemption 2 with all of their, NPC routines, but it feels so alive. This is the most alive Star Wars game slash universe that I've ever experienced, and honestly, it's just pretty incredible to walk around. I love how you interact with random NPCs and you get information about, stuff to do in the open world. So it makes you curious. And the developers themselves talked about how they were inspired by Ghost of Tsushima. And it's very much that playstyle of, not just checking off things like you would do normally in a Ubisoft game, but going by player curiosity and, kind of that Starfield experience that I always wanted, but Starfield kind of failed for me. But it's got exactly that same quest pickup situation. It's got exactly that same quest layout. And I really like that, how you pick up, how you eavesdrop on two people in the open world. They give you, a tip, and then you go off to that location, and then a whole quest unfolds from that point. Or you can directly just talk to random NPCs in the open world and they will give you different jobs to do. So that's already just incredible. But the amount of detail in this world, and I'm very autistic when it comes to detail in games. Physics. This game has tons of fucking physics. Every object is, has collision. That's a fucking big deal for AAA gaming. I know most people don't care, but I care about it.
That's good.
I think a big problem as to why Star Wars Outlaws didn't get much credit is because it doesn't look like a game that is very interesting, you know, just showing you gameplay, but playing it is a completely different experience. Like I said, this world is so lived in, everything is breathing, everything is alive, animated, so much detail to everything, and that's why I highly recommend playing it on PC, but if you can't, that's fine, it's still a great game. Also, the way they did transitions from, you know, literally going up into space, because you can explore space in this game, and it's way more interesting compared to Starfield, even though the combat in space is not the best, it's very arcadey. Still, the transition into space onto the planet makes you feel involved. You can still move your ship around. It makes you feel a part of that transition, and I think it's so well done compared to something like Starfield. Exploring these different worlds is just so crazy to me, because all of the little animals, all the NPCs talking, all of the races, it feels like you've been sucked into the Star Wars universe. That's what it does so well. Like I said, things having physics, the ray tracing elements in this game look absolutely incredible, and it makes it all come alive and feel very grounded and realistic. The quality of life in this game is just crazy to me, you know, like little details. You can play card games like Sabak, you can go to the arcade and play quite fun arcade games, which usually, let's be honest, they're not in games. And, you know, you can do stuff like that. You can just be a pickpocket, a thief in the, you know, open world and steal stuff from, you know, random people. It makes you feel a part of the open world, not that you're playing a game. It makes you feel integrated. It basically succeeded at what Starfield tried to be, you know, picking up, like I said, just conversations in the open world, talking to random NPCs, having some choice and consequence even in a light RPG sense. You know, I can get into the whole reputation system that this game is built around. Basically, what jobs you take, depending on, you know, the gangs that you work with, will change their reputation, and it will piss off other, you know, syndicates and stuff like that. Now, obviously, the repercussions aren't always as big, but they are so much better now with the new stealth and combat situation, you know, like redefined, like when you enter, you know, like an area that's controlled by one gang, now it doesn't matter, you won't just get thrown out, you can actually go and kill them all, so it feels very immersive. And the reputation system is just such a cool thing. I miss that in gaming when they actually played with, you know, some moral choices and stuff like that. The story is quite interesting, and she's quite a well-developed character. And of course, everyone just hated her based on appearances alone, which is ridiculous. There's just so much hate for this game that doesn't make any sense when you look at it fundamentally. For the gameplay mechanics in this game, it does a lot right. And then, you know, so much variation in the gameplay. You can be exploring, you know, like ancient tombs, like your goddamn Tomb Raider at some point. Then you can be flying a spaceship up in space. You can land in different space stations, different worlds, all feel very big and unique. And what I love about it is it's not just like the standard fetch quest. Yes, there is a lot of that, but usually it's led by your curiosity. So if you hear something, you don't necessarily have to go and do it. You know, these are side quests, these are side missions, but if it sounds like an interesting thing for you, then you just go off and you do it. It's not like the game telling you that you need to go and do this. It's up to you, so it makes you feel involved.
That's good.
Now, of course, I do have some complaints. The combat does get repetitive after a certain fashion. And, you know, you can mix it up by having, you know, picking up enemy weapons. And like I said, now you don't just drop it, you can actually take them with you, upgrading your blaster. Also, your little companion, he's growing on me. They have a mini game for eating food with your pet, which is kind of crazy, but actually it's just adorable, and it really makes you feel, you know, connected to this world and this universe of Star Wars. So there's so many like little touches that go a long way for me to make this game special, even if the actual core gameplay is rather basic with its combat. The reputation system, it's a nice feature, but it doesn't necessarily always matter, because it's easy to gain the reputation one way or the other, you know, depending on what faction you choose, but it still adds interesting weight and choices and consequences to your playthrough, and, you know, changes character interactions and stuff like that. So it still does feel like an RPG experience in many ways, and I like that. I like that you can choose, you know, your own playstyle and how you want to interact with the world. It's the same reason as to why I love Andor. It feels real. It feels like this is what Star Wars actually is like for the normal people living in this galaxy. It feels grounded. The characters aren't cheesy. The writing is at times, you know, pretty high quality. At times it's just kind of mediocre, but it's never bad compared to something that I would see in Assassin's Creed. Betrayals going on throughout the story, lots of, you know, turns, and like I said, you create your own story with this type of game, and I really like that. Then you have the whole wanted system, so it's literally like GTA but Star Wars. I mean, I don't understand the hate this game got, and if you actually look at the Steam reviews, it's completely the opposite. Everyone fucking loves this game. Most people, it's very highly rated on Steam, so it's only the grifters and it's only the people, you know, the media outlets calling this game, the media outlets, you know, like taking this game out of context. And that's the problem right now with the gaming industry, and especially media, where we can't just enjoy something and there's so much tribal fandoms instead of just, you know, discussing our own different opinions fairly and, you know, coming to, you know, like a fair, nuanced discussion around things instead of saying you're right, you're wrong, because funny enough, it's all subjective. But I just wanted to gush about Star Wars Outlaws today and why I believe Star Wars Outlaws is worth playing in 2025, why I'm having such a fun time with it, and I hope I captured some of the reasons as to why, and it was somewhat entertaining, but I just wanted to gush about it because I absolutely think this game is phenomenal, and it's probably one of my favorite games so far that I'm playing this year, and I honestly do believe that Star Wars Outlaws in 2025 is a completely different experience, and I highly recommend it to you. So that is my review of Star Wars Outlaws, my Star Wars Outlaws 2025 review. I honestly think this game is quite special. I love how you can change the story yourself by deciding who to side with, and it has an actual reputation system. I love all the updates and changes they've made to the game. It's made it so much better, completely changed the game 180 for me and for many people. I just love the variation in gameplay. Like I said, you can have chill moments with your, you know, little pet and eat some food together, do some mini games, play some arcade games, you can play some card games, you can bet on, you know, alien horse races. It just makes you feel a part of this universe, and most of all, I love the detail. The level design is so well done, like how it separates the main cities in these worlds. In many ways, it reminds me of what Ubisoft used to have, that secret sauce, and obviously it's thanks to the other developers working on this who worked on The Division. The Snowdrop engine as well just looks absolutely fantastic. But honestly, it reminds me of those games that I, you know, used to love playing, you know, back in the day on the PS2, like Jak 2. It's got very much kind of Jak 2 vibes of the kind of underworld and, you know, choosing different factions, working for different people, not really committing to one, you know, kind of group per se, but just being this kind of, you know, rogue gunslinger. It's that fantasy I've always wanted in Star Wars, and it's gritty, it's realistic, it deals with some mature themes as well. It doesn't feel like baby Star Wars, and I just really like, you know, how everything is done in this game, to be honest, and it just reminds me of some of that old gaming that we used to get, and it's just so surprising that so many people, you know, call this game terrible, and that's because they actually never gave it a chance, and they were just hating on it because that was the correct thing to do, because it would give them more, you know, like credit or money, and you know how it goes. That's why you really need to stop watching grifters on YouTube and be careful who you trust, and I try and be fair and objective as much as I can be. So I do hope you enjoyed this Star Wars Outlaws 2025 review. You can tell very much that they were inspired by Ghosts, because the way that it guides you to objectives, the way that everything is animated, like the wind and the detail in the vegetation. Like, I'm not usually a graphics person, but the art style in this, not just the graphics, is just incredible to me. And the way the level design feeds into each other through, you know, exploration, through questing, and then the, you know, main cities that actually feel lived in, and how it navigates you through, you know, minimal HUD design. I just think that's what we need to see more of, you know, actual games that really put the player first in making you feel immersed and giving you that player freedom and expression that, you know, it's up to you and you can play this game how you want. And it wasn't like that on release, but it is now. So that's why I recommend Star Wars Outlaws in 2025. I hope you enjoyed this video, my wise ones. Please let me know what you think about this game. Maybe I'm insane. But that's just my personal opinion, so let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Please do be respectful though, because we can all have our own different, takes. Obviously not everyone likes everything that you do, so just bear that in mind and be respectful down below in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Peace out.